Hi, I'm Yasmin, a wife and a proud new mom with a background in perinatal nursing. Welcome to Birth Unboxed, where we talk about all things birth, whether it's unassisted free birth, home birth with a midwife, or in a hospital. I believe every woman deserves the right to choose how and where she gives birth. I created this podcast to raise awareness so women can make informed choices and feel empowered in their births. By sharing stories and learning from one another, we can reclaim our power and become the ultimate authority in our own birthing experiences. Sisterhood is powerful, and I am so glad you're here. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Birth Unboxed podcast. So today I have my lovely sister, my little sister, Mariana, on the podcast. Welcome, Mariana.
Hello.
So I'm going to just give a quick little backstory. So Mariana and I share the same dad, and Mariana was born in Canada. I was born in Brazil. Mariana moved to Brazil when she was like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I moved to Canada when I was 8. And then Mariana moved to Canada in 2017 with her boyfriend, got married, and has 2 beautiful little girls. So it's been really nice having you live here and being able to share this new phase of our lives with little kids and babies. So today you're going to be telling us your 2 birth stories. So take us back to the moment you found out you were pregnant for the first time. Was it planned? Was it a surprise? How are you feeling? Did you always want kids?
So I definitely always wanted kids. Since I got together with Guilherme, my husband, Gui, we talked about it. I always want to have kids. I always wanted to be a young mom, I guess. Like I never really planned to have like I didn't have an age, but I kind of wanted to have young for some reason. And I know nowadays kind of it's the opposite. Most people are having a after 35, I guess. So I was quite young when I had it. I was the first one within my group of friends, in my family, even though I'm the little
Yeah,
sister,
yeah,
I had
that's
it
right.
before. So it was quite new and totally unexpected because I was on birth control for 14 years. And me and my husband, we actually were having a wedding in Brazil. I think at the time it was COVID, it was kind of confusing, but I think the party was supposed to be in April, and this was September. We went for a trip, and I forgot my pills, like the birth control. But I was like, oh, whatever. It's been 14 years. There is
You'll
no
be
way I'm gonna
fine.
get pregnant. And then we came back and then we were in Quebec, stayed a few days there, came back to Toronto. I remember it was my birthday week, so October 1st, and we went party. And the Monday after, I was like dead, so much hangover, and I was like, I feel off, like something is weird. I'm really sick. Like I usually don't have hangover. But that day I was feeling so nauseous and I was like, something is wrong. But Dee was like, no, you just drink too much, that's it. And I'm like, no, no, like something's weird, something's weird. At that time I was back on the birth control, because well, I don't remember the date, but anyways, I was back on birth control, but I didn't get my period. And I was like, so weird. I'm gonna do a pregnancy test. And he was like, there is no way. It's impossible. And I actually remember me and you and our friend, like Louisa, we went to the beach and we talked about it, the situation. And you actually even said, oh no, it's fine. Like it's 0.2% of chances of you being pregnant. And I'm like, yeah, yeah,
I didn't
no.
realize you had missed so many days.
Yeah. Well, it was like 4 days, I think, four or
Yeah,
five
that's a
days.
lot.
I know. But anyways, and then we, I did a test and I was pregnant, of course. And I did like 6 tests. You keep buying like new tests. He was like, no, no, I think it's wrong. But anyways, I was pregnant. We were so happy because even though it was not planned, we always wanted. So it was great, actually. Like I said, I was the first everything, so I
Yeah.
had no idea about anything. The funny part is my husband's business partner. So, and then I found out this was like early October, and then my husband has a company, and I was at the business, and I talked to the wife's partner, and I was like, "Oh my God,
The
Stephanie,
business partner's wife. Yeah.
business partner, wife, yeah." And I was like, "Stephanie, I have to tell you a secret. I'm pregnant." And she looked at me and she freaked and she was like, "Me too." And I'm like, "What? No, wait, no, no. Like, it's like, are you kidding?" And she was like, "No, I'm pregnant too." And she was a bit ahead. I think she was like 9 weeks and I was like three. We were about, yeah, like 6 weeks apart, kind of. Anyway, so it was really nice having her because it
Yeah,
was
that was really
literally the
nice.
only person
Yeah,
with me through the same phase each day.
totally.
And also, at the time, we were super close, like because of the business. So it was really
Hmm.
nice.
Coincidence.
Yeah.
A good coincidence.
Yeah. In Brazil, we don't have midwives. We are starting to have this,
Hmm.
but technically, we don't really have. I don't think we
Yeah,
have.
it's mostly obese. So, like,
Yeah.
with your background in Brazil, once you found out you were pregnant, what were the initial steps? Like, okay, I'm pregnant. What do I do now? Like,
Yeah.
what,
So
like, where were you at in
I
that
remember the
moment?
first thing I did, I called my family doctor, and I was like, I think I'm pregnant, but I'm on birth control. What should I do? The doctor said, well, stop, don't take any more. Let's do a blood test ASAP, and then we're gonna confirm. I did the blood test. I was pregnant, and she was like, okay, now you have to either choose a midwife or OB, blah, blah, blah. She was pretty nice, like very general, kind of. She didn't really
Yeah.
went went through the process. And at the time, because it was COVID, and I guess I had no one to talk about it. I had no idea about midwives. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just choose an OB.
Yeah.
And then,
That's what most people do, right? So,
yeah, I was just
yeah.
like, okay, let's see what happened. I actually remember I got a contact with this OB, and she was Portuguese, and coincidentally, her office was near my house, and it was COVID. It was a very bad moment, also because we
Hmm.
couldn't really have like a lot of consultations. Everything was like mask and stuff. It was very bad. Uh, so it was actually convenient. She was nice, but very I don't know, not hands-on.
Yeah,
Opposite of
very, very quick. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
However, I had
Which
no
that's just
idea.
how most OBs are, right? So she's very, very standard. That's
Yeah,
what you get. Yeah.
and because I had nothing to compare,
Totally.
I was like, okay, that's fine. I had a very easy pregnancy with my first one, Cleo. It was, yeah, I don't think I had like anything
Yeah, pretty
exceptional. Yeah,
uneventful.
I had a
Uneventful. Yeah.
lot of nausea, a lot,
Yeah.
like a lot. I would throw up literally every day. It was
Yeah.
actually terrible.
How
But
long was your nausea? How long did it
I
last?
think like 15 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, the first 3 months was like
Yeah.
brutal. But then eventually it became better. I had a great second trimester, but then the third one was also bad. I had a lot of sciatic pain.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, OB was okay.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. Like even when
Yeah.
you go see a regular family doctor, the appointments are all very quick. You're in and out 5 minutes. So with an OB, they're just specialized, but it's basically the same thing.
So it was pretty much this. I would go there, check size, and that's it. When I was maybe 34 weeks, I had a bit of liquid,
A
like a
discharge?
yeah, like a discharge. And I remember me and my husband was like, "Oh my God, should we go to the hospital?" We had no idea at the time, right? And because it was COVID, blah blah blah, I didn't have a midwife, so we was like, "Let's go." So we went. That was the first time we went to the hospital. And then they did the
The
swab.
swab.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they're
to
like, "No,
check
it's
if it was your
fine. It's
waters.
yeah." it's fine, just go back home. You were just anxious, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. Um, we went back home. And then when I was 36 weeks and a few days, I think 3 days maybe, um, I was at my husband's business, and then I was just using the washroom, like peeing, and I remember I stopped peeing, but I was still like feeling water. Like I don't even know how to explain that, but I just
Yeah,
felt
like you
like
stopped peeing and be kept feeling fluid coming out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I looked at him, and he was like in the washroom too. He was like next to me watching his hand. He was like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe my water broke. I don't know." And I was like, "Oh my God, let's go back to the hospital." So we went back to the hospital. We got there, and then they did the swab, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, like now we see something. I think something happened. Let's see." I don't remember exactly, but I think I was dilated like 3 centimeters already.
hmm
Something like that, like 2 or 3.
But you didn't feel any contractions up to this point.
Having Braxton hits, but no pain. I would
But
feel like
nothing consistent.
no,
No.
no, no. And then when I got there, I did the swap for the GBS thing
hmm
when I was like 36, so like a few days before this, and they're like, "Oh, you were positive, so as soon as you get to the hospital, tell them that blah blah blah." I had no idea what was that, so I was like, "Okay, sure." So I got to the hospital, and
So, anyone listening, if you're not sure if you're in the same position as Mariana, you were told, oh, you gotta do a GPS swab, and they didn't really go into it. I did write a blog post. It's on the website, yacelera.com. So you can go on there, read about it. There's a bit of the statistics, the risks, what it means, just to help you decide what you want to do, if you want to be tested, if you don't, if you would want treatment, if you don't, just to give you a bit more of general information so that you can decide for yourself and be well educated on it, because most cases, most women will get such a brief little explanation of it that they don't really know what it
yeah,
is, or
yeah.
they forget about it. Like, it's just not very clear.
Honest, I remember, and that's also my fault. I was not really curious. Like I didn't really
hmm
know much, and also I think this is also related to my background. Like uh, in Brazil, this is definitely changing, but we don't make a lot of questions. The doctors say, "No, that's the best way. Let's do it that way," and that's it. So for
Yeah.
me, when I did the swap, and she was like, "Oh, GBS," I was like, "Okay." Uh,
hmm
I didn't
Yeah,
really
totally.
ask much.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got to the hospital, and this was like 2 a.m. I don't know. It was like during the night, and they started the antibiotics for the GBS, and then my contractions started kind of picking up at this point. Um, and then in the morning, yeah, I don't remember the times, but maybe like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. They they were like, "Oh, your contractions are coming, you're dilating, but we don't want you on the antibiotics more than 24 hours." Uh, no, maybe this was not 7 a.m. I think this was maybe like 12 p.m. because they're like the doctor, the anesthesiologist,
Yeah.
um,
Anesthetist,
he yeah,
anesthesiologist.
he will go to a C-section um now at 1, and then he has another one scheduled at 3. Like he had, I think, like a few, and they're like, if you want the epidural, maybe now is the time. This was like, yeah, I think I was like 5 centimeters or
And
something.
how was your pain level at this point?
It was minimum at this point. So I
Okay.
remember actually look again. I was like, oh, I don't feel I need, because I'm okay. And this nurse, she was really nice. She was like, it's crazy. It seems that you were not really having contractions, like real contractions, because the pain, it is different. I'm like, oh, really? I'm fine. Like I was feeling bad, and I could see in the monitor,
Yeah.
but I was like, okay. And then she was like, well, maybe when you really start to feel, you're gonna change your mind. Uh,
Do you remember if you were on Pitocin at this
at this
point?
point, no.
Okay.
But then, after that, maybe within an hour or so, uh, this was like 1 p.m. They're like, "Do you want to start this?"
The
Like us,
Pitocin.
yes,
Yeah.
which is advocacy, right?
Which is the synthetic version of oxytocin.
Yeah. And then I was like, "Why? Like, should I?" And the nurse was like, "You don't have to. You can start with a very small dose if you want. It's just to kind of accelerate the process, but it's up to you." She was really nice. She was like not pressuring me. They're just like, "It's up
Mm-hmm.
to you. Uh, There is
That's
no
nice.
pressure." Yeah, they were
Yeah.
really nice to me. And then I look at Guy and was like, "Should I?" And he was like it's up to you. At this point, they were not really concerned because she was premature. Because I was
Mm,
36 and 4 days, they're like, "That's almost full term. Let's just kind of consider she's full term."
mm.
Um, so I was not like at risk or something. So they were just like, "It's up to you." And then I think I called my mom, maybe I call you. I don't even remember, but that's when I think I talked to the family. And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna take one small dose and see how it goes." I got this dose, and I remember the most, the worst thing I ever felt in my life was a
Yeah.
contraction after
With the
this dose.
Pitocin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I literally felt like my all my bones were breaking. That's how I felt. And I look at you and I was like, "I need the epidural." And he was like, "Okay, okay, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
the," yeah, because I think the guy was like changing between surgery. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"It's either now or never."
So just to clarify, it's not just like a one-time dose usually, it's a drip. So they start a drip, they start on the lowest, and then every certain amount of time they'll check, see how it's going, see how your strip, how the baby's heart is, and then they increase it a little bit
Yeah.
and then see how you do. So it's
I
continuously
Yeah,
increasing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they didn't really have time to increase much. I remember
So like
this,
initially, the first time it
yeah, it
already
was
kicked
very
in.
fast because I
Yeah.
remember they started and within like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
I asked for the epidural. The guy came right away because he was like, "Oh, I gotta go in a surgery right now, so I need to do right now."
Yeah.
I had the epidural, which was a very weird feeling, cold, weird feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fine. I had the epidural. I laid down, and then this nurse, she came to me and she was like, "Now, don't worry about it. You're probably gonna take like hours." At this point, I think I was like 6 or 7, maybe 7. She was like, "Probably things will go down, blah blah blah." And she actually said, "I will go in a break, but don't worry about it. You're not gonna have the baby at least in the next like 3 hours, likely." And she was like, "If you feel the urge to use the washroom, like to poo, let me know or
Yeah.
ring, like call a nurse."
The call bell. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I remember as soon as she left, maybe like 5 minutes, I looked at my husband. I was like, "Oh, I feel like I want to go to the washroom." And he was like, "Oh, really?" But she said it would take like 3 hours. And I'm like, "No, I know, but I just feel like," and he was like, "Should we call a nurse?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, just in case." So we call somebody else who I haven't even talked. Like this person was on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "Hey, I'm feeling the urge like to go to the washroom," but she said, "You just got the epidural. Like there is no way something happened." I was like, "I know, but I just feel like, can you check?" And then when she was like, "Okay, let me check," and she was like, "Oh my God. Oh no, 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 like hold, I see the head." And I was like, "What? Like what happened?" She was like, "I think you were full dilated. Let's call the doctor, blah blah blah." And this was all very fast. Like this
Yeah.
part I don't really
Rush.
remember.
Yeah.
It was very like she then said to me, "Hold, hold, hold. People coming, nurse." I don't even know who was there. They're like, "Gee, with my husband, hold her, help her with the legs." I gave like two 5 push,
Mm-hmm.
and she came out. It was so quick. Like that part was so fast, quick,
Yeah.
and crazy. And I was like, "Oh my God." And then she came.
And so let's just backtrack a little bit. the OB who came and delivered the baby, was that the OB that you had been seeing?
No, no, I've never even see her face. Actually, until now, I still don't know who it is, and because it was also very fast, I don't even know who was on call. When she came
Mm.
in, I was literally already in labor, like I was already
Yeah, ready to
pushing.
push.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I didn't even see her face. Like she literally just came, took the baby out, gave it to me.
Yeah.
She was still attached, like on the umbilical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Umbilical cord, yeah.
and I think she was blonde. That was it. Like I had no conversation with her
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I think because I was very lucky, I had a very easy birth and easy everything. It was great, but I keep thinking if I had any issue, it would be a nightmare not having
Yeah.
someone with me.
Yeah, because of the pandemic, you were only allowed one person with you as well. So
Yeah.
that's definitely makes it a bit
Yeah.
more stressful.
Yeah, and I didn't have my parents. I couldn't have
Mm-hmm.
you. I couldn't have
Yeah.
anyone with me. So it was just me and Guy, and we
Mm-hmm.
were just like, "Oh my God, that's crazy. That's so fast." It felt very fast because we were not expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think she was born like 4 or maybe 3:48, something like this, and the girl left 3:10 for her break, and
Wow.
and it was
Wow.
crazy. And she
That
was
just
like,
goes to show that, there is the classic textbook patterns that you will see. This is how much you dilate every hour. But then there's cases like yours. So what I always say, I was just gonna say, what I always say is, even if you don't plan on having a home birth, some
"You should
people
be
they
ready."
dilate that fast that you're either gonna birth at home or in the car. And what do you prefer? I would always choose home over being in the car without a seatbelt. So
Sure.
just know that that is a possibility. Some people take forever to dilate, and some people, boop, super quick.
Exactly. So my second one was even quicker. But there is a bit of so just so we finished Cleo,
Mm-hmm.
and then I gave birth, and they're like, you know what, she was great, she's very healthy. Let's just assume she's 37. So I only stayed 24 hours. They did the
Nice.
test, but she was fine. She
Everything
was
is great.
big, like 7 pounds average.
Yeah, yeah.
She was
Yeah,
like
she's
seven
over like 3 kilos.
7.2 pounds, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 kilos and 200 grams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, that's good, good size. Breathing
Yeah.
was fine. So they consider her a full-term baby. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really experience any premature stuff with Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Like her feeding, everything was just like a
well,
full term baby.
yeah,
Yeah. How was
feeding
feeding? Because you breastfed,
very
right?
challenging, painful,
Yeah.
hard at the beginning. I know, I'm sure other moms said here. Uh,
Totally. But we
it
just got to keep
feels,
saying it
yeah,
because it's not said enough.
yeah, it feels natural. People say that it's natural, but I don't really feel it was natural to me. Like I breastfed Cleo until she was 17 months, but to be honest, it was not something that I super enjoy. Like I did because I care about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's
just
fair.
did because she needed. She was a small baby, even though she was not premature. She was always a small kid. Like
Mm-hmm.
her curve was always on the low percentile. Still now,
Mm-hmm.
like she's
Yeah.
4 and she's still tiny.
Yeah.
Um, and because she didn't want the bottle, she never liked formula milk. Up until now, she still doesn't drink milk or formula. She doesn't. Yeah. So I kept breastfeeding until 17 months. It was quite hard.
Yeah.
Easy. Like in a way, it was an easy adjustment. I remember the first few days was horrible, like so
Mm-hmm.
painful. But then after maybe like a week, it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was it more
and
convenient? Did you find it convenient? Because you've always been a mom that likes to go out a lot with the
oh
girls.
yeah,
So did that
it
make it
was
easier?
very, yeah, it was very convenient. You don't have to worry about it. Just boobs
Yeah.
here. You just do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Claire was a kid very on the go. Like we were
Yeah.
running a company, summer camp. She was a summer camp when she was like 40 days old. Um, and
How was that
traveling.
postpartum for you? Because you were like go, go, go pretty much from the get-go. Did you find that that was too much or you liked that? Did that help you recover faster?
Actually, yeah, I think I didn't really have time to wondering about like the postpartum stuff because I was so busy. I kind of liked because yeah, I didn't really have time. I was just like busy, and it was summer. It was really like I'm very glad
Yeah.
that we all share babies like in June, July,
Yeah.
so I could go outside, go to the park, walk, drink coffee. Like it was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was on mat leave, of course. So yeah, it was really easy. I feel like my postpartum with Cloud was very easy
Yeah.
mentally as well.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess having Stephanie, like my business
Yeah.
partner, it was really helpful
So
because,
you didn't mention,
oh
but
yeah,
when she delivered.
she delivered actually 2 weeks before me.
Yeah.
And her baby was born on her due date, which is funny, not very
Which
common.
is, yeah, not very
Yeah,
common. Yeah.
she had a very easy birth as well. She had midwife. That was a difference. And I remember like we talking about it. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the checkup that you have to do, I remember
Yeah,
that was something that you guys really talked about because you had to go back to the hospital
yeah, like
for the
every
checkup.
2 and 3, I think 2, 4, and 6 days. I don't know.
Like, yeah, like
Yeah,
usually 24 to 48 hours after you go home, you go back. And I remember for her, the midwife
for her it
went
was
to her
so
house, so
easy.
you were
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah, yeah. But and it was really great to have her like throughout this path, especially the beginning. So I think that's also one reason why I didn't really feel like any,
Yeah.
mental stability.
Didn't feel so alone knowing she
No,
was going
yeah,
through it and you
that's the
guys got to
thing.
talk through it.
Yeah, yeah, like everything we would do it together, and
Mm-hmm.
every phase we were kind of like, oh, she's teething, oh, she's, I don't know, sleep regression, tantrum,
Yeah.
terrible stew, like everything. It was kind of
Yeah.
the same, so it was
Yeah.
easier. Um, but then when I stopped breastfeeding at 16, 17 months, I got pregnant right away,
Mm.
3 days after. I stopped breastfeeding, in fact. So again, it was October. I also, it was a few weeks after my birthday. I was like, oh, I feel so nauseous again. What is
Did you
this?
party again?
I did party actually. In fact, I went to a trip with Guy to Rio,
Oh
but not
yeah.
that, like, not party hard. But anyways, I was like, oh, something's off. And I did the test and I was pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. We were happy because I grew up like
As
as a
an
single child.
technically as an only
Technically,
child.
yeah,
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
only child. Guy is an only child. So we were like, oh my God, it's crazy, but happy because
Yeah.
we don't want that single child. It was
Yeah.
like absolutely not. So we were like, okay, let's just deal with this. Like it's crazy,
Yeah.
but let's go. Um, so Liz is the second one.
Yeah.
Her pregnancy was not that easy, I guess, but I think for a few reasons.
So now you have a toddler, so that's different.
Yeah, it was definitely different, and it really hit me hard.
Yeah.
Um, at that time, Claire was around like almost 2, so terrible 2. It does exist. I know. I don't know. I'm not.
No, she was almost 2 when you gave birth. Yeah.
But honestly, Turbo Two start at
Start,
18
start,
months.
yeah.
Like it never started at 2. Like 2 is like
Yeah.
the pick.
The peak, yeah.
But 18 months to start.
Mm,
The
good to
the
know.
the whole, yeah, you will see. I'm sure. But yeah, so maybe like in December when she was 18 and I got pregnant, I was like, okay, that would be interesting. Um, it was hard because also my body, I think because it was a very like close pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
um, I felt everything earlier. Like
Yeah.
I was nauseous on the first week, like week
Mm.
one, I was already
Yeah.
nauseous. Week two, throwing up. Week like 10, reflux. I had heartburn. I had like
Mm.
everything stomach like
Mm.
related
Yeah.
with Liz for some reason. And also the sciatic pain, it started at maybe like 15 weeks. So I think it was really challenging because I was not feeling well, plus have a baby, pretty much a baby, um, alive, and
Yeah.
one inside. So it was
Yeah.
very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, like I went through, I didn't really have any issues either. Like it was a normal
Yeah.
pregnancy. Challenge
Yeah.
for me, but not really like health
Yeah. So this
related.
time, did you go with an OB again?
Oh
What
no,
did you
so this
decide?
time I chose a midwife right away because, especially because I had Cleo, and after having this whole experience talking to Stephanie, I think at that time you were also at the hospital, so we could,
Mm-hmm.
like, you were more involved.
Yeah.
I was also more involved in this topic, right? Like I had more
Right. Yeah.
resource and people around me.
You start to
I
make
mean,
mommy friends and you start talking about
exactly.
births. Yeah.
And I was like, I was so lucky in my first one, but I 100% don't want to take the chance. So I'm gonna have a midwife. And it was great. Absolutely the best way. It was
Yeah.
completely
Why?
different.
How was it different?
The appointments were more personal, longer, nicer, everything better, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And like throughout the pregnancy, it was better, but not necessarily super good. But during birth, it was like
Night and day.
I can't even compare.
Yeah.
Because just like go back to the birth date. So I was so like I said, the pregnancy was normal, fine, blah blah blah. I went to the ultrasound like maybe 33 weeks, and they're like, yeah, she's great, good size. She's already like
Like her position, she was already head
yeah,
down. Yeah.
head down. They're like, she can still move, but likely not. All good, all set. I was like, okay, great. So I went to a party at our business, like a barbecue party, and I was just off. I don't
How
know
many
what was
weeks were you?
34. I don't know what was happening, but I was just off. Like I was just like uncomfortable, but not in pain. I was just off. I
Mm-hmm.
can't explain. I remember everybody talking to me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think something is happening, but I just don't know what.
Yeah.
Um, and Guy was like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, you were far. You were 34. There's no
Mm-hmm.
issues coming. And I'm like, no, I know, but I'm just feeling something. And I spent the whole day. It was like a Brazilian barbecue, so it's like 10 hours of party. I spent the whole day like sitting and uncomfortable, but not really in pain. Guy asked me
Mm-hmm.
like multiple times, "Do you want to go home? Do you want to lay down?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just like
Yeah.
I didn't really have a position. I didn't want to lay down or walk or
Right.
stand. It was just weird.
Just uncomfortable.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but not in pain. And
Yeah.
then I was like, maybe midnight. I was like, you know what? I think we need to go to the hospital. And
Were
then
you
he was
still at
like,
the party at this point?
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was still at the party, and I was like, I don't know what is happening, but I just feel like it's better to. And I was like, oh, here we go again, because we went before with
Yeah.
Cleo, and it was a false alarm. And I was like, no, no, like something's happening. I was like, well, call the midwife and see what she says. So I called the midwife, and she was like, oh, that's weird. So I told her, like, I'm just uncomfortable. Nothing happened. I don't have anything, but I'm just weird. And she was like, well, are you close by? And I was like, yeah. 10 minutes drive. And she was like, well, I'm at the hospital because someone else is having a birth. Do you want to come and I can check you? And I was like, she was like, I cannot go to your house at this point because it's under 37 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I'm here, so why you don't come? So yeah, so that worked out well because I had a
Yeah.
midwife. And she was at the hospital. She was really nice, so nice. And she was like, "Oh, I'm here. It's just better coming. Then we have like peace of mind, and then you
Yeah.
go home." I called Stephanie, my friend, and I was like, "Can you come over?" Because Claire was here, like sleeping, and she was like, "Yeah, sure, don't worry about it." She came like 1 in the morning, and then we went to the hospital. Me and Guy. As soon as I got there, they were like, "Oh, we are free because they're still waiting, like with the other
Hmm.
mom. Let's check you." When they checked me, they're like, "Oh, you were 3 centimeters dilated," and I was like, "Oh,
You
okay."
were 34 weeks in a few days, right? 34 and 5, I think.
34 and 4
34 and
because she
4.
was born the next day, and I was
Okay, right.
34 and 5.
Okay.
So 34 and 4, and they're like, "Oh, you were 3 centimeters already." So that was actually what was happening in your body. Like the
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but I was not in
Yeah.
pain. And they're like, "That's crazy."
Meanwhile, I like died getting to 4 centimeters. Just so you see the difference, how everybody's
Exactly.
body is different. For Mariana, it's just like a little uncomfortable here at this barbecue, and I'm like dying.
Exactly. And I had no idea. I was like, "What? I don't know what's happening. Just feeling weird." Uh, And then we got there, and then they were like, "Okay, you're 3 centimeters." But then, terrible experience with OB, the person that was there,
uh,
because I was 34 weeks, and she was like,
so what happens is because Mariano had technically premature baby at this point, and she was already starting to be in labor, the transfer of care had to now go to the OB because midwives are not allowed to be the primary caregiver in that situation. So even though her midwife was there and she could attend to her, technically it was out of her scope of practice. So it had to be transferred to whoever the OB on call was.
right? And that was not nice. But
That was not nice.
luckily, luckily,
So
my
the OB was not nice.
not at all. But luckily, my midwife stayed with me the whole process. She was amazing. Like I can't even
Mhm.
say. Um, it was like, oh my God, I was so lucky. So pretty much at this point, midwife said you were 3 centimeters, so it's not still like active labor, but she was like,
Yeah.
that's quite a lot, like for you to not realize.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you need to stay here. Let's admit you and let's see what we can do. OB came in. She was like, okay, now I'm your uh, doctor and I will
Mm-hmm.
deal with you. I recommend you taking this whatever medicine is to slow down the process. Because at this point, I was like, keep going, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 and still feeling
Mm-hmm.
uh, contractions because they were monitoring and they're like,
Right.
like you're still going, so we gotta slow
Yeah.
down. So they gave me, I don't know the name to be honest, something to slow down contractions,
Okay. Yeah.
which is something for neural whatever.
Oh, so they probably also gave you the Celestone, which is the injections for the baby's lungs, because since it was younger than 36 weeks, just
Oh yeah,
help
I think so.
the steroid injections to help speed up
Engagement.
and
Yeah.
mature the lungs.
But at this point, they're like, we got to stop this. Like, stop your contractions. Hopefully, you get another week at home. Even if you need to stay, you can have like a week bed rest. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
Yeah.
great. Like, not great. I was like crying and desperate. And I was like, okay, what's happening? What am I gonna do? And then they gave me this medicine, and they're like, okay, it's not stopping. You're 5 centimeters. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay.
And at
So
this
the
point, you're still not feeling. Wow.
like I was just, I don't know, feeling something weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 centimeters, and then the midwife was like, okay, there is no way back. You were having this baby in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
At this point, I didn't even have the test for GBS, so I don't know if I had it or not. So clearly, it's not an issue because I may had it, and my daughter was born the same way as the other one.
Well,
So
they didn't give you the antibiotics just in case because that's usually They'll do that,
To be honest,
like
I don't remember.
sometimes. Yeah.
Maybe it's in my head, right? I don't
Well,
remember.
they say just we don't know. We're gonna give it to you just in case.
It was
Sometimes,
like
yeah.
it was very chaos like this one. It was not
Chaotic,
a
yeah.
yeah, it was not very easy on me because I was very stressed about the 34 weeks and the whole thing.
And well, they were probably very stressed too.
Yeah, yeah. They
And
were like
they were definitely pushing that anxiety onto you. Because if they're worried, then you're like, oh shit.
then this OB, she came to me and she was like, "Well, just so you know the process, this baby, it's leaving your body and going straight to NICU no matter what. You cannot even touch her, blah, blah, blah." She was so rude to me. She
Wow.
was like, and I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, there is no way this baby is staying." Because I actually asked, I think I asked something like, "Oh, can I do like
Skin to skin?
skin to skin right away, the same way I did with the first one?" And she was like, "No, there is no way. She's very premature. 34 weeks. It's uh like a dangerous age, I guess, because of the lungs."
Mm-hmm.
And they started to explain all the worst case scenarios. And I guess,
Oh,
like, I understand they have to do that to prepare you, but it was horrible. At this
yeah.
point, me and my husband, we were like crying and like, what we're gonna
Oh,
do? Like, we're gonna have a
yeah.
baby at NICU. We have another baby at home. My mom was not here. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Anyways, my midwife, she was an angel. At this point, she came to me and she was like, let's go. And then, like, she came. I think at this point, I went to a room, a private room, I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, let me talk to you. I called this head of uh, PAD, pediatrics.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
head of Pete,
He
yeah.
he was an old guy, like older, and he was like, he was really nice. He's gonna talk to you. So he came to me and he was like, okay, let me understand you. I talked about my first labor, and I talked about how Claire was kind of premature too, like 36, but she was fine. I was like, you know what? Birth, motherhood, like nothing. It's a exact like science.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't know. We don't know if she's ready. It seems to be because your body is just pushing her. Like you
Yeah.
got 5 centimeters dilated without even feeling anything. So clearly she wants to come.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it. You are doing your best. Like, let's see. Let's wait. Let's not think about the worst case scenario. We're gonna have a NICU team with you, like in the room, because
Mm-hmm.
it can
Yeah.
really get like bad.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it, blah blah. He was so sweet, super, super nice. And
And he
then my
totally
midwife,
calmed you.
yeah, he called me and my husband, my midwife too. She was like, I will be with you no matter what. Like, don't worry about it. At this point, I think the other mom had the baby. So she was like with me. She was like, I'm gonna be
Hmm.
here. Poor person, because I think she was like on like 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so I started, and then it was again very fast. Everything was very fast. I was 5, and then I waited a bit and was like, should I get epidural or not? And then I had a pain, a contraction pain, very similar to Cleo actually. I was like, you know what? I want epidural. I'm already so stressed. At this
Did
point, I was
you that you didn't get any Pitocin this time?
no, because I think they were trying the opposite, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember, but I don't think so.
Yeah. So it's just going fast on
It
its
was
own this
like
time. Yeah.
fast. Yeah, so I don't think so. Maybe I did, but to be honest, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I was like, no, I just want epidural. Like, I don't want to pain, or I'm already so stressed and crying. Like, I was
Yeah.
not in the best state of mind. So I was like, let's just do that. I got the epidural. Then within a few hours, it was like 10 centimeters. It was very fast.
Yeah.
Maybe this all happened in like 3 hour window,
Yeah.
like to 5 to 10. So when she was born, uh, the umbilical cord was very short, so
Mm-hmm.
they tried to give it to me, but I actually couldn't really. Like I put my
Yeah.
hands down, and they're like, "Oh no, we cannot. Like you either need to keep her here or cut. Like I cannot push her up." I was like, "Oh, that's so weird. Like I've never even
Yeah.
heard about
Sometimes that
that."
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then at this point, she was crying, super, super strong, crazy crying. And then the doctor was like, that's crazy. She looks so good. Like her color is so good. Then they weighed her and she was 7.2 pounds as well. She was actually 3 kilos, 250 grams. And they're like, that's
Mm.
insane. Like, how has this all happened? At this point, they're like, no, she's not going to NICU. Let's just observe and see what is happening. And then she was fine. They did a bunch of tests. She was completely fine. Full
Yeah.
term baby.
Yeah.
They're like, that's crazy. Everybody at the hospital would stop me. Like, what is that? Can I see the 24-week baby? I was like, sure. She was like fine, happy,
Yeah.
calm, very calm, and chubby actually, almost like
Yeah,
chubby.
she was.
You
Yeah.
remember? And then at this
Yeah.
point, you came to the hospital. Like everybody was just shocked. This
Yeah.
doctor came to talk to me and he was like, I told you, we never know. Like this can happen. Someone else
Yeah.
came, another pediatrician.
Another pediatrician.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he came to me and he was like, look, it's not normal or common. Like it's not usual that this happened.
Yeah.
But maybe your body just makes baby faster. Like we don't know because the ultrasound was correct, right? Like
Yeah, you
there is
had done
no,
the dating ultrasound.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, but it was just
Yeah.
great. And
So that must have been a big relief for you guys to find out that she was able to stay in the room and you got to go home after 24 hours, right?
like usually with midwife, you can leave like 4 hours after, but because she was
Yeah, yeah,
premature,
yeah.
they're like, no, you have to wait
Yeah, yeah.
24.
Usually with
Because
midwives, at least in most hospitals in Toronto, 2 hours.
yeah,
Yeah, just as soon
but
as
yeah, but
they
this
check
one,
your
of
bleeding and
course,
all
they're
that.
like, no, we want to check her more
Of
because it
course,
was an
yeah.
unusual
Mm-hmm.
situation. But yeah, then the next day I came home and it was so good having the midwives coming. They came quite a lot because when she was 7 days, they thought she was a bit yellow, like the
Jaundiced.
jaundice.
Yeah.
She was not like diagnosed fully. They're like, because she's premature and she's kind of yellow and not getting a lot of weight, let's just take her to the hospital. It was more a cautious way that like
Mm,
precautious than
yeah.
actually like
Precautionary.
diagnosed. Yeah. So we went and they're like, let's keep her a few hours. I think we stayed like overnight. I think we stayed one day, which
Yeah.
was my other daughter's
Yeah.
birthday. Yeah,
That's
because
right. So
yeah,
since she was born early, she was born just
uh,
a few
5 days
days,
before, yeah, 5 days
5 days.
my other daughter's birthday.
That's funny. So then
So
I got to go to the hospital and
yeah,
stay. First, I baked a cake with the 2-year-old, and then I went and stayed with the baby in the hospital so that
that's true.
Maddie and Guy could sing happy birthday with their 2-year-old daughter.
Only thing, yeah. But yeah, so
So
that's what
lots
happened.
happening for you in those first few days.
It was. Yeah, and then I think we only stayed there like 24 hours, like I think
Yeah.
a day, like overnight, like
Yeah.
because they need to wait the 7 a.m.
Hmm.
change. But yeah, and then she was fine. She didn't really had, it was not like concerning, it was not
Yeah.
getting worse. In fact, the doctor was like, maybe she didn't even have it, but we wanted to make sure like she would absolutely
Hmm.
not get anything because
She
she's
did go under the lights
I see the
for
lights.
some hours. Yeah.
But like
The
I think
phototherapy.
5 hours, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
total. So it was not much.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that was definitely a different birth in terms of
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah.
Uh, so the birth itself was very easy again, but the story right
Yeah.
now like was way
Yeah.
harder. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And do you feel like you can just tell the difference between the first OB coming and just, you know, pushing her fears onto you and just having zero bedside manner and just stressing you out and then having the pediatrician come and be like, sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's a variation of normal. Let's
thankfully.
see like how, you know, the contrast between those two.
No, I feel like, well, not that I have an issue, but I think the OB was not prepared at all, like prepared to that experience, you know? She just wanted
Yeah.
to get things done and whatever.
Yeah.
and she was so cold, and she just cut and say like, "That's what happening. Going to NICU. Bye,"
Yeah.
and left.
Unfortunately,
It was
some people don't
horrible.
come with the people skill. They just have the medical
Yeah,
side, and
100%. Yeah.
it works so well when you get both, but not always. Yeah.
So it was not nice, but luckily I had a midwife,
Yeah.
and luckily I got this doctor too, like this pediatrician, and he was so nice and calmed me down.
Yeah.
So I think it was great because I had this calm to experience the
Yeah.
birth. Um, and the birth itself, everything was
Mhm.
fine. Both of my babies also, they were very thin, like not very thin, but like it was very easy to push them out because
Mm.
they were like small, like I
Yeah.
forgot the word,
Like narrow?
narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So both of them
Yeah.
actually, they had
Yeah.
the same body structure, and
Yeah.
I
So
think
they
this
came out
made
easy.
easier. I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why it's so important to really choose your birth team, because sometimes things happen, like in your situation where it had to be transferred because it was premature. So sometimes you're not in control of those things if you're going to the hospital. But having chosen your midwives and having them there, or a doula, like someone who's going to be there with you, and even if
100%.
everyone else is chaotic and stressing you out, just having someone who's going to be able to advocate for you and calm you down and just be this like grounding presence, because like your husband was also scared and crying, so
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it's so important to have that additional person there.
Great seeing that even though she could not be my doctor, like for the labor itself, she
Mm-hmm.
was still with me, like
Yeah.
all through, like the whole time. And
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
she came back. She was the one checking my baby. Like she
Yeah.
was super, like
Hands on and
yeah,
helpful. Yeah.
different. It was great. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear. Well, before we finish off, having had these two experiences, if you had to give one piece of advice, there can be more than one, but like there's an advice that you would want to pass on to someone who's you back in the day when you were first pregnant, just finding out you're pregnant, what would you tell them? Like, how would you guide them?
First thing that I will say is, in general, choose your battle. Because we cannot, like what I've learned through motherhood and having two different stories of birth and care, uh, we cannot have control of everything. We can barely have control over this birth situation. And when I thought I had control choosing an OB because that was kind of how I was taught, it was actually not control at all. Like I barely, like, luckily I had a great birth, but if I had one thing wrong on the first one, I would be I would be by myself with no support at all. And in the second one, because I chose the midwife, I think even though I had no control over when she would like like 34
Be
minutes later,
born?
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, I chose to have the support, and I got the support, choosing the midwife, even though it was something new to me, like
Mm-hmm.
new to my
Yeah.
family. I had to explain to my in-law, to
Yeah.
my mother, like, what is that? Like, why you chose this? This is so weird. Like, this is not a doctor. How do you
Yeah, she's
trust
not a
her?
doctor. Like, why are you going with her instead of the
Like,
doctor? Yeah.
yeah. So, and I think this is like an advice throughout motherhood because it's for everything, not just for the birth, but you really need
Yes.
to choose, yeah, choose your battles and choose what you're gonna stress about. And I think flexibility and like being able to adapt to what is happening, it's the best of my motherhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do that very well. I remember you talking about that to me, just like choose your heart. There's gonna be hard, but choose your heart. Yes, it's hard to get the kids bundled up and the stroller and outside, But it's also hard just being stuck at home with them. So just, choose your heart, and like it's still worth getting out and doing stuff for your mental health and for the kids.
Yeah, and that's one note. Like my second postpartum was way harder, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in relation with the birth also,
Mm-hmm.
because after this all happened and after, like I read a lot about this topic, I think the birth itself is really important to how the kid will be, to how your
Mm-hmm.
first
Yeah,
few like years with the kid. And
totally.
my mental health was definitely like more affected in the second one because I was, I don't know, more scared, more stressed, more
Mm,
tired, of course.
mm-hmm.
Um, but again, choosing to be out, choosing to travel, choosing to even go back to work, like you, because each person has their own needs, right? And for
Yeah,
example, I'm a working mom of two, and it's hard. It's really hard, but
yeah,
it's also really hard staying at home. It's also really hard. It's hard. Everything's hard. When
yeah.
you decide to have kids, it's hard. But I think being able to choose my heart, but what also fulfill me, it makes me a better mother.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I really learned that with my second experience.
Mm,
I really,
yeah. Yeah, well, very wise words. Thank you for sharing that advice and for sharing your stories and coming on your Big Sisters podcast. I appreciate your time. It was lovely hearing the full story again and with all those details.
thank you
Yeah,
so much for having me. It was great.
it's a pleasure. Pleasure. Have a great day. Mwah. Talk to you later. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to Birth Unboxed. If you've enjoyed today's conversation and want to hear more, please consider subscribing to the podcast so you never miss an episode and leaving a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts or even your own birth stories, so feel free to connect with me via Instagram at thebirthunboxed.podcast or through my website linked in the show notes. Until next time, friends.